Hi everybody, and welcome to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. In this video, we begin with a pretty shocking post from the subreddit Am I the A-hole that comes with an update. Then, we're gonna move on to some malicious compliance and finish up with some petty revenge. And as you already know, if you want to move about the video, you can always use the timestamps right below it. Now, let's get started with that first story. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user I Teach Calculus BC. Am I the a-hole for forcing myself to bond with my boyfriend, fiance's daughter? So, I've been dating a guy since 2012 or so, and we recently got engaged on Valentine's Day. My fiance has two kids, 20 and 18 from a previous relationship. One will be a junior in college and the other just graduated high school. Their mom isn't involved in their lives at all and does not even live in the same country. However, I didn't really meet them until late 2014, early 2015, when my then boyfriend and I knew that we were serious. I've always got along well with the 18-year-old because he's relaxed and easygoing, but I've had more problems with the 20-year-old girl. When we first met, she'd always try to find ways to avoid talking to me or speak awfully of me behind my back. She even stopped going over to my fiance's house and instead chose to alternate living between her aunt and uncle's homes because of me. This was when she was under 18 and legally under her dad's care. At some points, it was so bad that my fiance debated whether he should keep dating me or not, and I really didn't want to break up with him. When she was about 17 or 19 or so, we got closer. Her dad dragged her to therapy after some behavioral problems and depressive symptoms, and we learned from her therapist that she had a lot of trauma from not having a consistently emotionally available mom figure in her life. Because I teach high school, I know how to get along decently with teenagers. I am one of the more popular teachers at my high school, and what it's like to be 17 or 19-year-old girl from personal experience. I used those experiences to kind of try and force myself to bond with her, to be the mom figure she lacked. I started going to her soccer games, dance shows, and school rallies when she was 16 and a junior in high school. I just generally tried to show I cared for her by giving her hugs, listening to her friend and boy drama problems, and buying her things she liked. I think she likes me more now than before. I'm the first person she hugs when she comes back from college and all that. Although she is still closer to her aunts. She grew up under their care because my boyfriend was young when he had her and was in medical school full time. She planned out a nice Mother's Day celebration for me this year too. Explained that she wasn't comfortable doing it before we were engaged. She only came over 3 to 4 days a week when she was in high school, so it was doable. However, now that my fiance and I are engaged and getting married when the craziness is over, I wonder if I would actually be able to handle having her long term in my life. I feel like such an a-hole for kind of faking my bond with my fiance's daughter, especially when it comes so naturally with my fiance's son, and in light of our impending marriage. I do appreciate that she is pretty, well-liked, resourceful, and smart, attends a college that's Ivy level. But I'm not sure if I love her or ever will. Am I the a-hole for making an ingenuine bond with my fiance's daughter in her teenage and early adult years, especially when she might think that I really like her? What? So let me get this super straight, OP. You faked caring and loving for a girl in her teen years just so that your boyfriend wouldn't break up with you, but now that you are engaged, you have no more use for her. If that's it, then you are a gross a-hole. Honestly guys, I had so much to say about this horrible OP, but then I read the first comment and it was so good that I decided I'm going to skip my whole commentary. I'm going to ask you guys what your opinion is and to please leave it down in the comment section, and now we are going to move on with the community comments to see what they had to say. Blizzard's World says, "You're the a-hole. You wrote a lot here, so I'll help you out with some free editing. Soon after meeting my partner's children, I ran into conflict with his troubled younger daughter to the extent that my partner seriously considered leaving me because of it. Not wanting to lose my relationship, I decided that I would pretend to care about this child. I used my educational background and things this child revealed in therapy to round out my deception. I successfully convinced a girl with a troubled relationship with her mother to think of me as a loving maternal figure, saving my relationship with her father from ending. However, I now feel that deception is no longer of any value to me. I have successfully secured my relationship and I no longer want to expend the effort of pretending to care about this girl. I am worried that emotionally abandoning my soon-to-be stepdaughter, much like she feels she was abandoned by her actual mother, may end up being inconvenient or awkward for me though. And I have realized that marrying her father may mean I will have to interact with her long term. Am I the a-hole for manipulating a child into loving me and then choosing to discard her now that she's not useful to me? I'm not sure a-hole is the appropriate word for whatever the F is wrong with you. Reno Stimpy says, you're the a-hole for tricking a teenage girl into loving you and then callously saying you don't get anything out of it. How cold can you be? And OP responds, I don't get much to be honest. Deleted says, I don't understand. Did you fake your bond with the daughter so you could marry her father? And are you thinking of distancing yourself from her now that you are married? If so, you're the a-hole big time. She's clearly changed and will continue to do so in college and after. At least give her a chance to grow. You stopped developing at 25. If she's an a-hole 10 years from now and doing the same thing she did as a teen, gossiping behind your back, being rude, etc., then drop her. In the meantime, have some patience. She deserves that at the very least. And OP responds, I faked it at first, but there were moments during my interactions with her when I felt like I liked her sometimes. I do appreciate her positive qualities. She is really pretty. Her mom is a model and she got a lot of her looks. She is nice to look at. And sometimes she is really loving and sweet. And I feel the same way sometimes. However, other times she gets really moody and needy. Well, the community definitely agrees that OP is the a-hole, and that first commenter just did such a good job at interpreting OP's post. On a personal note, the more I read OP's responses, the more I think there's something wrong with her emotionally. Anyways, let's continue with the update now to see how this situation got resolved. I read over the replies to the post and thought really hard about it, although I admit I was often argumentative and didn't really want to listen for the most part. Meanwhile, my fiance's daughter came home shortly after I wrote the post. I asked her what she thought of her dad and me getting married, and she said she couldn't wait to spend more time with me and all. I opened up and became super honest about my anxieties going into the marriage, how I didn't know how my role would change in her or our family, and how I was scared I wasn't ready to be a mom to her and her brother. She reassured me that my role wouldn't change much and that I was already the closest thing to a mom she ever had. I kinda started crying when she said that, and then she started crying too. Since her birthday is coming up soon, I always get her a card and write her something meaningful. I've also started to reflect upon all the memories we've shared, all the heavy personal stuff she's talked about with me, her soccer games and her team's wins and losses, her dance shows, her late night phone calls from college, both happy and sad, etc. Now that I'm more clear on what she wants and expects from me after her dad and I get married, I think I've come to realize that yes, at first I did sort of have to force myself to bond with her, especially when our relationship was on the rocks. But I've really come to love and appreciate my boyfriend's daughter, even though all the arguments and her initial teenage behaviors. Without her, I wouldn't get nearly as many hugs or as much love. And more importantly, I'd have missed out on getting really close to someone as intelligent, talented, and passionate as she is. When she was away for the past month or so at school, traveling for the summer, I actually really missed her and know that my life wouldn't be the same without her. I missed her hugs, love, and her snarky commentary on our favorite shows. I love all the hugs and appreciation I've gotten from her, but she's enriched my life in so many ways. So no, Reddit, my boyfriend and I are not getting divorced or breaking off the engagement anytime soon. But thank you for making me really reflect on my thoughts and potential behavior towards her. I now see how suddenly withholding love could really be harmful towards someone who's gotten close to me, and someone I've grown really close to also. I think my fiance's daughter and I will continue as we are, and hopefully grow even closer throughout the years. Insincere smiley face. I don't buy a single word from this whole update. To me, OP sounds like a very intelligent person, and let's face it, People who can fake their feelings have to be very intelligent in order to be able to read other people. I think OP didn't like being called out as an a-hole in what is an obvious a-hole behavior, but she's taking the learning and she's going to continue to manipulate the daughter to not create drama. What about you guys? What do you guys think? Do you believe OP? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to another post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Charles Oberon. Reimburse me or the police will get involved. Okay then, let's get the police involved. So, I work in customer support for a mobile network provider. The way our company works is that after training, you enter a 1-month testing period where you answer phone calls under close supervision. At the end of the testing period, they either let you go or transfer you to a permanent position on one of the teams. I was a few days away from the end of the testing period when I get one heck of a phone call. I spent more than an hour on that one. It hurt my final score at the end of the month. The customer told a tall tale about how when she was trying to pay her debt to the company, she racked hundreds of shekels worth of debt in unincluded uses. The sales representative was rude to her and refused to let her pay, so she took a picture of him and left. The reason the call took so long is that she kept telling the story out of order, adding and changing details, and going on tangents and rants. It was very difficult to get the story straight. I felt like a detective trying to piece together the clues into what actually happened. Every time I read the story back to her chronologically, she added or changed something in the middle or went on a tangent about how she's a polite British woman and we shouldn't hire people like that representative to represent our company. Eventually, I got her to settle down on a version of what happened. I looked through the records and saw that according to the representative, who was a lot more concise than her, she was the one being rude, yelling at him in English, a language he barely spoke, and taking his picture without his consent. I didn't tell her that, I just politely instructed her on how to pay her debt via the phone. She sounded nervous. I told her that until the debt is paid, I cannot make the changes in the account, including adding a report. So reluctantly, she gave me her credit card details and the debt was paid in full. I reported on what she told me and moved it along to my superiors. A few days later, my testing period was over, and despite that tragedy of a call, I aced it and got transferred to the illustrious email department, which is what I wanted. It's much more chill here and I can work at my own pace, not having to rely on the customer or the supervisor to work faster. Also, I could take my breaks whenever I felt like it. Everything is fine for a couple of weeks until I receive a new email telling a familiar tale. It was an enraged recounting of the same story I heard on the phone, except much more elaborate, with more details I never heard before, such as the involvement of another person, and that the representative assaulted the customer by trying to impede her exit from the store. The customer complained that she's been cheated and expected the representative to be fired, but she saw him again at the store and was outraged. She was under the impression that her paying her debt meant we will listen to her and fire the representative. The email ends with the following demands. 1. Fire the representative. 2. Reimburse her for the money we stole from her under false pretenses. 3. Apologize to her in the form of extra compensation and a personal phone call from a high-ranking manager. If we did not comply, the police will get involved. So I complied with the second part and got the police involved. You see, while reading the email, I noticed that the address she emailed us from had a different surname than her account or the credit card information she provided. And lo and behold, the email was actually her real name, while the other details were fake. Turns out she was indeed a polite British woman overstaying her visa for over a year that was now using a fake identity in Israel. How's that for false pretenses, bitch? As we discovered later, she was also wanted for numerous accounts of fraud where she didn't pay for services or claimed compensation for stories that later turned out to be false, just like she tried to do with us. We called the police, but they couldn't find her since the physical address she registered on our site was also fake. So we called her back to the store to apologize personally. She gladly obliged. The police were waiting for her. Neither I nor the representative she implicated was there that day, unfortunately, so we didn't get to see the look on her face. She was fined a hefty amount and then deported back to the UK. Well, OP, she wanted the police involved, you got the police involved. I honestly don't understand people like this lady. Like, I really don't. But it doesn't matter at this point. Thanks for sharing, OP. Now, let's move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit Petty Revenge, and it's by user Butterfly Chunks. I retrained my roommate's brain to not respond to his alarms. I was in college, a senior. My roommate was a sophomore, but it was his first time living in a dorm. He'd been a pretty lousy roommate. Constantly left the room a mess, left his stuff on my side of the room and on my bed, stole my alcohol, used my crap without permission, never cleaned up my dishes after he used them, and a bunch of other stuff. I confronted him about all of these issues on several occasions, and got the RA involved with the alcohol stealing issue because, at the time, he was under 21. Things still continued anyways. He asked me once if it was okay if his girl spent the night, to which I said no. We were in the middle of a pandemic. Plus, that's especially weird if I was there. I also had to wake up every day at 8 for work, which he knew, and he would stay up until 2 playing video games some nights. Not to mention, he would set like 10 alarms in the morning with a bunch of different alarm tones. I hit a breaking point and decided to do something cruel. Every morning when I woke up, I'd observe his alarm pattern and how he'd respond. He had several alarms that he'd ignored, all with the same sound. He had a couple of half-hour alarms that had a unique sound, also ignored, and then the final alarm had its own sound too. All of them were default iPhone sounds, so his brain had been trained to this alarming pattern for a while, I'd assumed. So I started step 1 of the punishment. Set up a sequence of alarms on my phone identical to his sequence, but an hour early. He responded to my alarms the exact same way he'd respond to his own. I kept this up for a week, and his brain was eventually retrained to sleep through double the amount of alarms as before. Then phase 2 kicked in, random inconsistencies in my alarm pattern. Some days I'd play all the alarms, while other days I'd only play one that his brain was trained to ignore. That way, his brain expects to sleep through like 20 alarms and only ever hears 11. He slept through his alarm at least 4 times in 2 weeks. Eventually, he finally changed his alarm pattern so he'd only have 1 alarm and he no longer had the energy to stay up until 2 AM. Ha! Well done, OP. Pavlov much? Thanks for sharing. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I certainly did reading them to you. So if you did, then go ahead and give the video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and become a member of our Discord community that just keeps growing and it is fantastic. And like I said in the beginning of the video, all of the relevant links are in the video description below, so be sure to check them out. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys enjoy this content, so thank you once again. And having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video.